Here on the Equratings Eventing podcast, we have teamed up with our very good friends over at BedMax, as well as our very own Spike the Vet, to give you guys, our lovely listeners, some tip-top tips. And let me tell you, listeners, that is quite a mouthful to say. We are on take number 55, approximately. Spike, what have you got for us today?
Oh, Nicole, I've got another top tip for you. What we're looking at this time is that really important thing of ensuring that even though you're using brilliant bedding like BedMax, it's what you're doing day to day to look after that bedding and how often you're changing it, how deep that bedding is. Got to have a really good level of bedding in there to make sure that we are in a position of not having abrasions happening on hocks, sore areas on hooves, damaging coronary bands. We need to be making sure that we're changing that bedding really regularly. And also we're really trying to avoid that build-up of that horrible, horrible ammonia smell that we can get in stables.
So keeping it really clean. What is so awful about ammonia apart from the really bad smell?
Well, ammonia is that real like jarring and cloying smell that catches at the back of your throat. And that is very, very inflammatory in horses' airways. It causes damage to the mucosa. And then that is how we then get secondary bacterial infections. And then suddenly we've got a coughing, ill horse. And something as simple as ensuring that we have a really, really clean and safe environment for the horse will undoubtedly reduce the risk of you and your horse seeing the vet more often.
There you go. Another brilliant top tip. Thank you, Spike.
Thank you, Nicole. Always here with more top tips.
Oh God, it's so exciting.
Happy Hail Bob Day.
It is a happy Hail Bob Day.
That was our elo coming in for competition.
Eventing Manager is back.
Best show that we have, Alphabetti Spaghetti.
Looking forward to seeing quality horses.
I mean, you're a bit of an eventing geek just like us.
Welcome to the Equratings Eventing podcast, Anna, when Nicole met. Now, listeners, this show, as always, is very kindly supported by our great friends at BedMax. And today's guest is a lady that I am so excited to talk to and to find out more about not only an extraordinary career, but also an incredible eventing career. Okay, so I was thinking about this, and she has graced so many magazine covers. She has beaten the likes of Oliver Town and Ballamore class in the first phase, which I'm not going to lie, I mean, I think that deserves a line on the CV all by itself. I'm just going to dive straight in. Edie Campbell, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm really chuffed about that last bit.
I couldn't resist. I was like, what do I start with? Because your career has just been extraordinary. Your eventing career has all manner of things that we can talk about. And then I was like, but do you know what? She's beaten Ballamore class and Oliver Town. And
it all just comes down to that one dressage score, and that's it. You know, put that on my gravestone. We're done.
No, we'll come to that very shortly. But first of all, thank you so much for coming on the show. And let's go back to the beginning of your love of horses. So where did the love of horses come from, first of all?
No one else in my family rides. It's not really a thing it's not like a world I grew up in. But my mum took me to ballet class, and then she watched me try to do ballet with all the other little 4-year-old girls, and she said I had so little grace or elegance that she kind of hoiked me out of the class and decided I could go and do something a bit more brutal, like ride a pony. So that's kind of where it started. And I grew up in London, so there wasn't a lot of equestrian activity there. But my mum has always rented a cottage in Hamptonshire, so I went to the riding school and kind of potted about, and then I used to spend like half term there, sort of just, I don't know, doing whatever kids do with ponies, like brushing them and gymkhana games and that kind of thing. So that's kind of where it all began.
The best kind of fun, with the kind of fun that we all wish now at 30 we could still do. What about, so having a pony, did you sort of actually get one? Obviously living in London, it isn't the easiest thing to be able to sort of incorporate into a lifestyle. So how did that come about?
One of my dad's friends had a kind of ancient old 12-2 Welsh pony that had been outgrown by their children. So it was kind of foisted onto my parents. It's a good thing for me. But the pony's in Northamptonshire, and so I used to come up on the weekends and ride the pony, and then I did pony club and all of that kind of thing. And then there came a point where my mother was a bit like, I don't know what this horse thing is. And she kind of wanted me to just go off and do it somewhere else and not have to be involved, because it's just not really her thing. And she has a full-time job and other children. So I was handed over to a kind of local instructor, pony club person, and spent a lot of my teenage years on the train to go and stay with this woman, Pippa, who became my kind of horse mentor for many, many years. And my horses were with her at her yard, and that was sort of how it kind of carried over into almost present day, basically.
Were horses something that you ever thought about pursuing as a career, or were they always sort of for fun?
No, it was for fun. And then when I left school, I was kind of like, how can I manage to afford to keep a horse with this job that I have at the pub? Not really. It's not really financially viable to have a horse on full livery when you work 2 nights a week in the pub. So, and then I kind of ended up modelling, and then that became a thing that snowballed and became my life. And fortunately, pays enough to have horses on full livery. So
tell me about the sort of the introduction to modelling, because you were a 4-year-old that got sort of hoiked out of ballet class for not being graceful and elegant enough, and now you are basically the most graceful and elegant event rider that there possibly is. So how did modelling come about?
Well, my mum, for not being horsey, used to work in fashion in her 20s, so she had lots of friends that worked in fashion still. And one of them was casting a story for British Vogue and wanted it was called Young London, so it was teenagers in London, and asked if me and my brother could go along so she could sort of eye us up and see if she wanted us for this shoot. And she did, and that was kind of the first kind of fashion job I did. And then that was when I was 15, I think. And I thought it was extremely exciting. I was getting my makeup done, and there was a free lunch and all these clothes, and it was all very exciting. And then I stayed in school and did a few bits here and there. And then when I left school and was looking for a way to pay to have a horse, I thought this could be a good option. So then I sort of was a bit less half-hearted about it. And then it kind of all spiraled, I guess.
Give us an insight into sort of the spiral and how it became such a massive, enormous career for you, because you are one of the most well-known models on UK soil. You have a list of campaigns that include the likes of Burberry, of Hermes, of Chanel, Christian Dior. Like, the list goes on. It's just absolutely extraordinary. So how did it get to that incredible point? Because it's hard work as well.
How to be a successful model? I had a very good agent, and I guess I suddenly got really interested in it, and I love how pictures are made, and it sort of becomes a thing where suddenly you're kind of, through a little bit of luck and a bit of fortunate timing, you're the kind of face that people want in that moment. And then, when you become, like, for want of a better phrase, like the hot thing in air quotes, that everyone wants a piece of you, and then no one can get enough of you, and then it's wears new clothes, and everyone gets really excited because there's this new face, and let's cut her hair off and bleach her eyebrows and get really overexcited. And then there's a lot of kind of traveling and can you be in Paris today, now, 5 minutes ago, and I wanted you in New York yesterday. And it's there's a lot of flapping and squawking and too small clothes and too small shoes, and trauma.
So how does that fit? I mean, because horsey people, I would say, love to plan, and yet that sort of life and career requires a massive degree of flexibility. So how do you manage that in your sort of day-to-day?
Well, I'm not the hot thing anymore. I'm more a little bit more room temperature, kind of tepid vibe. But I have to travel less now that I have an established career. I can plan a little bit. You just kind of go with the flow. I don't really plan, basically. I mean, I do, but it's general gist rather than fixed. And also I'm really lucky that everyone around me is quite accepting of the fact that it's not intentional that I inflict this chaos upon them and their lives. And I would rather not, but you just kind of go with it. There's no point fighting the inevitable.
So did the horses take a seat on the back burner when sort of the roller coaster really kicked off? Did they have to, in order to enable your career to take off, have to kind of come second best for a while?
Yeah, no, they did. And I also was at university at the time. So there was a lot of like in a lecture and then like on the Eurostar and that there was like a few different things on the go. But I mean, I wasn't doing anything like particularly thrilling with my horses. You know, it was like novice, intermediate, which is not to say there's anything wrong with competing at grassroots, but it wasn't like high stakes, serious. It was like a fun thing that I did, but not kind of like wildly time consuming necessarily. So they didn't take a backside. I was just very good at organising and kind of working out that actually if they gave me a late dressage, it wouldn't matter if I landed at Heathrow that morning, because as long as like the flight wasn't delayed and I was wearing my breeches as I got off the plane, I could be in the car and at Weston Park for like a 10-15 dressage. So there was a lot of like that nightmare thing of circling Heathrow before you land, and like you have phone signals so you can warn people that you're circling, but you're desperate for a runway, like a parking slot at Heathrow to be clear. So there's a lot of like very fine, cutting it extremely fine. Can someone give me a lift on a quad round the cross country course because I haven't got time to walk it, kind of thing.
And what about, because this I find fascinating, and I guess I say less so now, not necessarily as it's still massively important, but I guess your career is established, so you have more say over what you sort of can and can't do. But eventing and horse riding would be seen as a dangerous sport. Did anybody ever try and say, no, you can't ride your horses?
Yeah, it's not a good idea to tell me what I can't do, because it will only result in one thing. Someone told me I couldn't work and be at university and ride horses and have a social life. It just didn't end well. I don't like being told that I am not able to do something. It's like a red rag to a bull.
Do you think that actually that has been, because eventing is a hard life, horses are a tough life, you know, things go wrong, it's a roller coaster. Modelling is, I imagine, quite an industry that you have to really stand up for yourself in, because you don't want to be influenced by other people. Do you think that has been a huge impact on how successful you've been by the fact that actually you have stood your ground?
A reasonably resilient person. And I think having reached the point in the fashion industry that I have, it's given me confidence to think that if I apply myself, I can be successful in other things. I guess there's a confidence to it.
So when did the horses become actually more serious, I guess? When did you say, do you know what, I want to actually pursue this, step up the levels, compete internationally? I mean, you're now competing at 4-star, which we'll come on to in a second, but when was that sort of moment for you that you thought, do you know what, actually, I really want to push this further?
I guess I just had a couple of good horses, and like I'm quite an ambitious person, but I think I just had some nice horses and I thought I can jump the harder stuff now. I'll have a crack at that one next. There wasn't really a sort of conscious moment, but I think actually it sounds like so mercenary and like a bit vulgar, but I had a bit of money, and a thing that prevents a lot of people doing things in horses is the financial blow that it can be. So, you know, then that becomes a thing. I could afford to compete, travel, etc., buy a nice horse.
And so tell us about the horses that you've got now, because you've got 2 that you compete internationally. So tell us a bit about your setup at home and how you make it work with sort of all the things that you juggle.
So I've built myself a yard and a house, and I live in the country now. So I moved out of town a year ago, and now I live in the country and own like a set of harrows.
That's like proper adulthood right there, isn't it?
It is. And I own like a backpack sprayer.
A good old knapsack.
Yeah, it's really exciting things like that. So I built a yard, and I've got a little yard, and I've got 3 horses here, and then 2 like kind of retired nags. My 2 proper horses are called Fireball. He's a 4-star, and then Bruno is a 3-star, and then I've got a really sweet little fat 5-year-old. And who knows what he's going to become. At the moment, he's just like a dumpling in the stable. Yeah, so I've been here for a year, and I'm now responsible for these horses, except this season I have a really fantastic and professional groom in the form of Rebecca Ross, who has come aboard to professionalise me and, you know, crack the whip a bit and just look after the horses and me also. And we shouldn't sign up for that part of the role, but I've foisted it onto her.
That was just an added bonus that she got, like a Christmas extra.
I think exactly. I'm going to frame it to her as a Christmas bonus.
There you go. You're
You
so
have to look
lucky.
emotionally.
And so what about Fireball? Talk to me about him first, because you know, he's come up through the levels. He's always looked very, very smart, and he's a horse that you've worked really, really hard on, but actually now is establishing himself, and you're establishing yourself because it's your sort of first foray into 4-star level. So tell us a bit about him and your relationship, because I mean, I saw him at Burnham Market last weekend and he looked brilliant.
Yeah, he's really cool. I bought him as a 7-year-old. I'd done a bit of show jumping. He's really classy, and I just really clicked with him kind of immediately. And normally when I go and try horses, I jump sort of like 2 90-centimetre fences and think that's enough. I'm going to stop while I'm ahead. But I just kept jumping bigger and bigger, and I really loved it. And I thought I would like this one. And he's mega. He's really classy. He moves and he jumps, and he's learning how to gallop. And he stepped up through the levels pretty easily. He's a little bit bratty. We had some high points and some low points last season, and he learned to run out left. And we had a few kind of like lots of annoying 20s in a row, and it just is a bit frustrating. But I've learned how to kick cross country. Astonishingly, to me, if you kick, they're much more likely to go than if you sit there and go, well, you decide if you want to jump it. So now I kick, and he goes. And who knew it was that simple? Not me. But he's going to be mega. It's just getting it all right on the same day, and he's feeling great, and we're going to get there.
Tell me about that dressage test, because listeners, if you are unsure what I'm going on about, then at Thoresby, just a few weeks ago, in the first phase, there was a name that appeared at the very top of the leaderboard, which was Edie Campbell and Fireball F, that was ahead of some very, very prolific horses, including a number of badminton contenders and 5-star contenders, including the reigning Kentucky champion, Ballamore Class and Oliver Townend. Just how thrilling was that for you? You know, you're an amateur. You've produced the horse yourself. You have a full-time career, and you're up there mixing it in such good company.
Yeah, that was a great screen grab. I was so happy to have got that. I think I might get it printed.
It's the downstairs loo. It's frame of downstairs loo.
Pride of place, like up just above Ballamore Class, actually. Was really fantastic. I was so chuffed. And obviously I can't get too smug because I've not done it again, but got to take the highs where they come. He did a really good test. Izzy Taylor had warmed me up for the dressage, and he just warmed up well, and the arenas were really nice there. And I went in there and it all just kind of happened. I'm told it's called flow state, when you reach this kind of flow where it all just happens. That's a sort of general psychological term. And it seems that's what happened. It just kind of worked. And he's a really smart horse, so when it goes well, he's really fancy.
It goes really well. But you are right. You know, with horses, when something like that happens, you've got to celebrate the wins. You've got to sort of focus on the good points. There's enough hard days that actually, you know, you need the good ones as well. He came out at Burnham Market this last weekend. So we're recording this just post Burnham Market, listeners. And he looked brilliant. And it was a tough track. And he finished just outside the top 10 in one of the 4-star sections. So do you feel like things are coming together now at 4-star level as a combination?
Yeah, I think they are. I mean, look, I can be really smug because I got a great dressage score, but I then did have 3 down in the show jumping. So, you know, I can only celebrate for the kind of 24 hours that I did this great dressage score before I was like back in the middle with my 12. But, you know, I'm just learning a little bit every time. He is becoming a lot more established. I'm learning to ride more accurately and more reliably at that level. We're getting there. I mean, the track at Banner Market was really tough and he was great. And I kicked with my left leg when I was meant to, my right leg when I was meant to, and it happened. So...
Are you a proper adrenaline junkie? Because you've done things like the Magnolia Cup in the past. I think you've won that twice. You know, the cross-country side of things, is that the bit that really drives you towards eventing?
Yeah, like a drive like a lunatic. No, I think probably I am. But I love cross-country riding. But then I also love like the precision of dressage and like getting that right. And I like particularly that you have to be so good and adaptable and do so many different things really, really well in order to be good at it. Like it's good saying you can't do dressage. You're gonna have to learn. Like just, you know, and I always was always that person that was a bit like, oh, whatever, it's just boring. And then I realised if I was going to do this and be competitive, I'd have to learn. And now I really like dressage. It's kind of fascinating.
Is it for you? Because that was really interesting. You sort of say, if I'm going to do this and be competitive. For you, you strike me as a very competitive person. Like you're doing it to be good at it. You're not doing it just to make up numbers.
No, it's not the taking part that counts, I'm afraid.
At least you're honest. I think that's fair. A lot of people might say, oh yeah, it's just fun to take part. And to a degree it is, but also you want to be good at it and to do yourself proud. Yeah,
I mean, I'm not saying like I'm going to go out there and like beat everyone, but it's not like a lovely day out. I mean, it's also a lovely day out, but that's not why.
I think that makes a lot of sense. So what next? What is the ultimate sort of goal for your eventing career as such? You're establishing now at 4-star short level. Is there a sort of, have you thought about where you would like to get to and what you'd like to do?
Yeah, Fireball, he's going to go and do a 4-long at Mill Street, then he'll do another 4-long towards the end of the year, and then we will see what happens next year. I'm not going to like say that he's going to be at 5-star next year because he's got to do all these other things well, and so have I before then. But I mean, like, hopefully, if everything goes to plan, hopefully everything will go to plan and then we'll be in position to make that next step. But I've got to jump some 4-longs first and then we'll see. But that plan. And I've got my 3-star horse, Bruno, is really smart. He's really cool.
He looked like a proper cross-country machine, actually.
He's really cool. He's huge, like an enormous, really long horse, but he's so cat-like. Like you can't catch him out down a grid. Like you can build the shortest distances, the longest distances. He'll make it look absolutely regular, like perfect. And he's really cool cross country. Like I feel like I could fall off at the beginning of the course and he'll just still carry on and jump it all regardless. He was so useless as a 5 and 6-year-old. I bought him and got him home, and I was like, "Oh, I'm going to ride my new pony," and I couldn't even get him over a pole on the floor. Like he just kept spinning away. He wouldn't even go over a pole. And I was like, what is this useless goat that I bought? And he remained as useless as that for a good year or two. And I sent him at one point to Matt Heath to get us like an opinion as to whether I should bother continuing with this horse. And Matt was like, yeah, I think you should. I think he'll be good. I think he needs more time. So he had even more time. And as a 7-year-old, then he came out mega. And now he's like a completely different horse. So he's exciting.
Just needed to grow up a bit. You could probably say that about a lot of men, to be fair. What about who you train with? Who is sort of an influence in your career?
I have had lots of help from lots of different people, actually. I've had lots of help from Caroline Moore, particularly on the jumping front. And Dickie Waygood's been helping me recently, which has been great as well. And I've had lots of help on the flat from Henry Boswell and Ian Woodhead and also David Trott. So kind of a few different schools of thought and influences, but I'm trying to sort of learn to do it a bit for myself. rather than being sort of like an overgrown toddler that needs a hand holding all the time. So that's trying to like wean myself off trainers and be a rider properly.
Be self-sufficient and sort of drive yourself forward as well. I have no doubt if you're putting your mind to it that it will absolutely happen. And what about sort of modelling now? Because obviously you have achieved so much. Is there anything in the fashion industry that you think, actually, I would still really like to do this or be involved in that in the future?
I just would like to just keep going. I mean, that tends to be a little bit of a time limit sometimes for models, but not always. Fashion is a really fun, interesting, creative, inspiring industry, and it's nice to be a part of. And I feel very sort of honoured to be sort of invited into this kind of like closed world. So I kind of just hope that I can keep, going behind the curtain a bit. Yeah, it's good.
Because you said a little bit earlier on about the sort of, you were so interested in the process behind it and how, like, the artistic direction behind it, which must actually make the job particularly fascinating, because you look at it from all the different angles in order to be able to create that finished product.
Yeah, I mean, I think most good models understand the power of the image, moving or still image, and understand how to create a great image. And if you don't understand that, you're always just going to be a little bit lost and bewildered. It's not something I understood for a very long time. And then suddenly I was kind of like, hang on a minute, I think I'm getting a hang of this. But until that point, it's horrible as like a sort of 18-year-old being kind of shoved against a kind of white wall and then being told to model when you don't really know what that is or why you're there. And it's a sort of monkey dance element to it. So it could be very bewildering if you don't really understand what you're meant to be doing. But eventually the penny dropped, and then that was that. Then I got it.
And it just like that. I mean, so simple. And I have absolutely no doubt it is not simple. The thought would fill me with complete dread and horror. But the amount of hard work that has gone into your career, I can totally see now sort of coming across into the eventing side of things. Are you able to, obviously eventing is a summer sport as such. I mean, we like to spread it out spring and autumn as well. Are you able to kind of juggle your calendar to enable sort of more events in the summer, I guess, to be able to kind of complement your eventing now? Yeah,
there's a fashion week in September and October. Well, there's a series of fashion weeks, New York, London, Milan and Paris. That does clash very badly with Blenheim. So particularly, that's actually the London shows that clash very badly with Blenheim.
Is that commutable?
It is commutable, but that's a lot of pinballing, and I'm quite chaotic as it is in my mind, so I can't be jumping from one world to another, and also remembering like to track left or right at the end of the centre line. That's a recipe for disaster.
I was going to say, I thought you meant the runway. I was like, well.
That too. Actually, once I have a friend who's a makeup artist who also has a horse, and she was doing a show. She was doing the makeup at a show, and we were doing the rehearsal, and it was like a kind of big rectangular space, and you had to walk diagonally across the diagonals. And she kind of like texted me like halfway through the rehearsal and was like, "Got to do your medium trots across the diagonal." And I was like, "It's exactly how I'm remembering where I'm meant to be going. Actually, is down the long side, across the diagonal, down the long side, across the diagonal." So sometimes those B90 tests come in handy. I mean, right, and then you divert to a 20-meter circle, and everybody looks at you and like, "What is she doing?" Halt on the centre line. Yeah, as long as it was square, Edie, as long as it was square. Did anybody, so sort of obviously some people in the fashion industry understood their love of horses, but was it something, or is it something that people sort of really do understand, or do they just think, "Oh, Edie's gone to ride her horse again"? I think there's a little bit of like, "Oh, you've just gone to ride your horse again. Isn't that nice? You have horses. Isn't that like relaxing?" And I struggle to explain that it's actually deeply unrelaxing. And also the Americans, for like New Yorkers, it's very like that kind of waspy American show jumping thing where like you have to be a Bloomberg or like Steve Jobs' daughter or Jessica Springsteen. It's kind of that show jumping world. And I'm a bit like, it's a bit more kind of muddy field. tractors towing you in and out, that kind of world. So
bit more knapsack on your back, spraying off the wind.
Exactly. So no, I don't think people that I work with really understand it, but like it's a niche world, let's be honest.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Look, you've had the most incredible career, and we're looking forward to following your eventing career as it goes from strength to strength. So, Edie, thank you so much for giving us a little insight into what it takes to be able to excel in the sport as an amateur coming through, but to have real drive and ambition to be able to be a huge success while having a whole different life and career as well. So thank you so much for sharing it with us.
That's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
It is our pleasure. Listeners, we hope you've enjoyed a little insight into just how Edie does manage the juggle, because it is absolutely extraordinary. And you have no doubt that there is a massive amount of drive, determination, talent, hard work, and a hell of a lot of will to succeed. And we are lucky to be able to watch it. And we're looking forward to seeing where it takes you next. So watch this space, listeners. We will be back very soon with more. And a big thank you, as always, to Bedmax for their support of When Nicole Met. We will be actually, I think, casting a little bit of a net to see, listeners, who you would like to feature next. So if you've got any suggestions, feel free to send them in. But big few weeks coming up with both Kentucky and badminton, so stay tuned and we'll be back soon with more. Thank you for listening to the Echo Ratings Eventing podcast.
Have a wonderful day, everybody, and I look forward to having you back with us soon.
Don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Instagram for more.
Listeners, we'll speak to you again soon.